You do not want to miss this episode. We're going to talk to Ilona Koziol. She's going to talk how in a few short years she was able to just enter the real estate investing community and then quickly raise up to $7 million, do six major developments in the GTA, land development consulting, all kinds of other stuff. Really short period of time, just an amazing guest. You're going to love this. Hi, everyone. Welcome to Control and Compound with Darren Mitchell. I'm your host, and joining me today, as always, Christina Wyatt. Christina, how are you?
I am super excited today to have Ilona on the show with us to hear about this. We get this question a lot, like how do I if I'm not in real estate already, how do I jump in? How do I scale it? So super excited to hear about how she's done it because success story here.
Absolutely. You could write the book on how to get started in real estate. So, Ilona Koziol, welcome. Where are you based out of today? You in Brampton today, or are you on the road?
Thanks so much for having me. Yes, I'm in Brampton today in my home office.
Okay, great. So, when did you first enter real estate, and how did you get in the real estate market? Let's just jump into it.
Yeah, awesome. So I jumped into real estate long time ago before I even knew it was a strategy. I started purchasing single family pre-construction homes, and at that time there was no pre-construction strategy. I didn't realize even that what I was doing. I was like, oh, this makes sense. People are making money. So that's kind of how I got into it about 10 years ago. But more recently, in 2020, I started doing it full time. And I was in corporate sales and, loving my life, investing a ton of my money. All my motto was always like, get the money out of the bank, get the money out of the bank. It's not making me any money. So I was doing some lending. I was also buying pre-construction homes. And then, March 2020, as we know, COVID hit and I got laid off from my job. And I had no cash flow because I was relying on my corporate job for cash flow. And I had just joined an investment group, which I paid a lot of money for, almost cleared out my whole bank account for. And my back was up against the wall. I had no income, no cash flow, no liquidity. My private borrowers were struggling to pay too. And I decided, you know what, this is my opportunity. I joined this investment network for a reason. And I had a 5-year goal and a 5-year plan, and that 5-year plan turned into a 3-week plan. And that's how I got started. I just went full force. I have 2 kids to feed and a roof to keep over our heads. So that was really the motivation to get started full time.
Awesome. And what real estate group did you join?
I joined Keyspire.
Oh, Keyspire, great.
Yeah.
I'm a member as well. Very cool. So you joined Keyspire, and then you lost your job, and then you said, all right, instead of 5 years, why don't we start this in 3 weeks? So I love that you joined a real estate group. We always talk about joining a real estate group. What was the next step after you get laid off? How did you how did you dive into the deep water?
Well, I found myself having a lot of free time now that I was not working. My kids were at home, and I knew the power of networking. I knew the power of relationships. Coming from a sales background, long-term sales cycle that I was in. So I really just spent all my days on Zoom, and I would talk to anybody that would talk to me. And that was the first real, dive in. And I started learning about strategies and people and issues. And, I would just and a lot of people had a lot of free time too. So it worked to my favor because everybody was at home, right? So we would sit on Zoom and I would learn about short-term rentals and I would learn about multifamily and I would learn about development, and I would hear it from the people that were actually already doing it, which is key because sometimes we go to these conferences and yes, they're inspiring and yes, they're amazing. There's so much value, listening to speakers and networking with the guests, but we only see the highlights, right? We see a 90-minute, someone on stage. I have 200 units in my portfolio. Everything's amazing. So this was a little different. I got to talk one-on-one with people that are actually doing it day to day and seeing the challenges and really listening for the things that it takes to execute that kind of strategy, and then going back within myself to think, is this something that I want to take on? Is this a skill that I have? Is this a skill that I want to acquire? Or am I going to hate my life? Like managing a short-term rental sounded so exciting because from what I thought, it was, a beautiful, I can design. I love design. I can design a beautiful place. But then when I'm hearing the cleaner didn't show up and I had to go there myself, and I'm like, that one's not for me. Next. So I really started learning about strategies from the people that were doing it.
I love that. Like the fact that you invested in you, we talk about that so much. Like investing in you and taking the time to learn and, to educate yourself on this. It's not something that you just jump into lightly. And you're saying that too, right? You've got to take the time, you've got to invest in you and your education and really get a good solid foundation. So I think, you've kind of just given the listeners the very first step here, the education. Right?
Yeah.
Like you've got to take the time to learn about it and, and invest in yourself. And would you ever regret taking that first step and jumping in and investing in that? I know it was a big one, that big commitment, and a lot of people fear it. They're like, that's expensive to, do something like that. But the payoff, right? Would you ever regret? Would you encourage those to, get involved too?
100%. I mean, we were just chatting. I think I spent at least over $100,000 on masterminds, coaches, networks, you name it. I did it. And it's not like I had the money. I scraped the money. I literally emptied my entire bank account because for me, I know I will bet all my chips on myself. And if you have that inside of yourself, that you're committed, you're dedicated, you have a big reason, you have a big motivation. My motivation was I need to pay my bills and take care of my kids. Then there's nothing else that there's very little risk, in my opinion, in investing in yourself, because no matter what, there's going to be something that comes out of it. No matter what, there's something that you're going to learn, people you're going to meet, and they're going to take you to the next level.
Yeah, I love the people you meet because we have a lot of clients that are either working partners or money partners, and that's part of that joint venture. And I think you had some partnerships along the way that just taught you a lot and allowed you to accelerate to levels you might have taken a lot of extra years to get to, but you're able to shorten that time. Tell us a little about that and how you get into some of these larger development projects.
Yeah, so through my networking and Zoom calls and the self-discovery and the discovery of real estate itself, and like Christina was saying, just being within that network and learning and educating myself, I started looking intentionally for a partner. Again, I come from the sales background where we have a huge team, right? I see a lot of people trying to do that on their own. I want to keep all the equity. I don't want partners. I don't want to do this with anybody else, but leverage is everything, as we talk about. I know you guys talk about this too. Leverage is everything in real estate, but leveraging other people, leveraging their experience, right? So basically what I did was make a list. I knew I was going to focus in on development. My dad's been in the trades my whole life. I love the whole, job sites and dirt and dust. And I bought pre-construction, and I would go and visit my pre-construction sites all the time. And I'm like, I knew I needed a construction partner. I knew what I could bring to the table. And again, that list of, okay, I've never raised money before, but I have sales experience. And that's really what it is, right? So I knew I could acquire the skill of raising money because I had the skills of sales to do so. But I had no interest in learning the construction piece because, like you said, people have that experience already. So I was able to partner with an incredible person, and, he had a lot of construction experience. I brought what I brought to the table, and we were kind of both, it was divine timing. I do really believe in that. And we both wanted to scale at that time. We joined forces, and that's exactly what we did over the following 2 years.
And what were some of the projects you worked on?
So we started with acquiring single family homes in High Park in Toronto, and we would convert them into 8-unit apartment buildings. So it was quite the process.
Yeah. It's not a little one. That's a jump right in.
No, just go right in. There's no time. There's no
basement
time
apartment for you. It's
What's that?
no basement apartment. Let's go 8
No,
units.
no, let's go straight. Let's go straight to the big projects. Yeah. So we really did it all. We went from, and in the beginning it's tough. And I remember this now. I have conversations with people that are just getting into it and building relationships with realtors, trying to find off-market deals. And, it's a journey, right? You have to kind of crawl before you walk and make mistakes and learn through conversation. I remember first calling a couple of realtors, and I'm like, I'm just looking for a good deal. They're like, okay, click, this person doesn't know. I'm like, okay, that one didn't work. Let me rephrase my pitch here. And I got really specific on, we talked about the strategy. We looked up the zoning. We would buy in zones that already allowed for multifamily. And so now I can pick up the phone and say, I'm looking for something in this area. It has to have this zoning. It needs to be at least 50 by 150 lot. This is exactly specifically what I'm looking for. And I would start telling people about that. And then they started noticing and remembering, hey, Ilona called me, or, people started sending me deals. So once you do one, you get that experience, you know exactly what kind of conversations to have. But ultimately, yeah, we did 4 of those. We converted these homes into 8-unit apartment buildings. And from acquisition to raising money to financing to closing and planning and construction and stabilization and refinancing and holding long term. So I did from A to Z in those initial projects. So I learned a ton. You learn a ton by just jumping in and doing it.
Those projects sound amazing. What is it that you're currently, so you did those projects with your partner, not working with the partner any longer, kind of branched out and jumped out on your own. How did you decide that it was the next step to, move away from partners, focus on your own, and go to your own projects? What was that process like?
I think, again, it's a journey, right? So you're doing what you're doing, even with what's going on with the interest rates and this, we're always pivoting, right? That's just what we do. So being flexible, understanding that your goals change, understanding that people change, and people want to go in different directions. My partner started doing things overseas, right? I'm like, I think I need to stay here. I have kids and this and that. And what I realized, and my partner, again, very passionate about construction. He's really amazing at it. He teaches it, he's so good. I wanted to kind of stay away. I got a little bit burnt. We did our projects over COVID when everything went through the roof, labor, material, timelines, committee of adjustments, everything was taking forever. And then I really saw an opportunity where in the planning process, so in the entitlement of the land, right, in the getting more density, and understanding through conversation and through different networks that people were just doing that. I was like, okay, that sounds amazing. There's a lot of money to be made in just getting approvals on land. So that's what I'm focusing on now, land development, whether it's raw land, assembly, buying maybe a small plaza, and then taking it through from where it is now, which is either a single family home or a commercial plaza, taking it through draft plan approval, site plan approval, and then exiting. So I found that the investors also like a shorter term, so that's maybe around 2 to 3 years versus 5 to 10 years on the hold side. So, and then there's no construction. I have amazing planners. They update me once a month. Hey, this is what's happening. This is the study we need. This is how much money we need. I'm like, awesome. Okay, here you go. And there's a lot of money to be made. And then there's a lot of exit options too, because you're starting so early in the process. You're buying and it's really nothing. I don't even have to touch the land and I can still exit. So lots of money to be made in that process. And then you have options. You can either, completely exit. You can JV with a builder. And this is another thing we talk about, leverage, right? I don't want to be the builder. I don't have 20 years experience building. I don't have the economies of scale. I don't have the tradespeople and those relationships. And, I see a lot of people trying to build and their price per square foot is so high because it's like a custom builder. You do 1 house a year or 2 houses a year. You don't have that scalability. So I'm like, let me leave it to the experts. That's what I do. I know what I'm good at. I know what other people are good at. And so you can JV with a builder at the end and stay in the deal and still ride the wave of the profit as you go, but really leave it in the hands of the professionals to go and build. So my investors like the shorter timelines. There's lots of ROI to be made in that process. And then it shortens kind of and segments the investment in phases.
Yeah, when people talk about land development, they think, it's buying the land and going through every single phase right to the end. But I mean, when you buy that land and you're able to get it rezoned to ideally something that you want to build, just that rezoning alone is going to see a huge bump up in the price, and that's where you tend to exit now. And then that not only is it a huge bump up in price, but it's a very special set of skills required to get it from point A to point B, redevelopment. And doesn't matter where you are in Canada, just talk to someone about trying to get development change from this zone to that zone, and the GTA just multiply by 100 probably the complications and steps you got to go through. So you need that expert, and I love that you don't have to wait 10 and 15 years till these projects are done.
And that's what I do. I go to the experts always. There's always someone that knows more than me. And what I do is a lot of people go and look for deals, off-market deals, or wholesalers come and they're trying to make the deals work that come to them, right? So what I do is I talk to the planner. What's working? What's not working? I talk to the city. What are you looking for, right? So I kind of start a little bit before the actual deal. I have really amazing relationships with planners. So if I go and I want to purchase something, acquire something in a certain area, I have people that I can call and say, hey, what's going on there? The planners are such a integral part of my business, because they're looking at deals every single day. They know, they're at the city meetings, they know what they want, they have good insights. So I, literally will call a planner and I'm say, I want to do a project in Innisfil. Where should I go? And they'll tell me the street name. Go here. Because that is the path of least resistance. We're seeing lots of approvals. They're loving the density there. They're crying for density. So that also gives me confidence. And then doing obviously the due diligence, and my job is to mitigate risk really for the investor, right? And so a lot of people are like, what if this doesn't work out? I'm like, no, we don't go into deals that we think might not work out. There's definitely, challenges, as you said, and delays sometimes. But at the end of the day, we go in confident that we'll get those approvals. Yeah.
Thanks for listening so far. If you're watching on YouTube, make sure you like, subscribe, and hit that bell button so you always know when new content is coming out. If you're listening on your favorite podcast platform, please leave a 5-star rating and leave a review and subscribe. And if you are interested in learning more, please visit our website at controlandcompound.com to sign up for a free education session with one of our wealth coaches.
Okay, so I love where this is going, and I want to get into more about being active and passive and stuff. But I want to step back, because your journey, we just kind of skimmed over it in a few minutes. You went from 0 to 100 in a short period of time. So if you were going to speak to someone listening to this podcast and say, how do I get started in real estate? I've been kind of sniffing around, I've been thinking about it, but I haven't been able to actually pull the trigger. What would be the first couple steps for someone that was where you were a few years ago, or 5 or 6 years ago? What would be your first step that you'd encourage someone to do, or first couple steps?
Yeah, I think we touched on the network. Surround yourself with people that are doing it, have conversations. But really before that, I think figuring out what it is that your goal is. Why are you doing it? I see people trying to leave successful careers that they're super passionate about. Maybe they're a creative, maybe they're an engineer, and they see the shiny object syndrome, which I do all the time. I'm like, ooh, a new thing. No, focus. And so what is the goal? Do you really want, this is a business, right? And people ask me about multifamily. I said, I don't do multifamily. They're like, well, you're an investor, don't you know about? I'm like, no, I do development. It's a very different business. So understanding that this is a business, and if you want to do it full time, it's going to become your business. And that doesn't mean you're not going to work anymore, and probably, in fact, you're going to work more. So what is the lifestyle goal? A lot of what I do now is based on what I want for my lifestyle. I want to have free time with my kids. I want to be able to travel. I want to be able to do all these things. So figuring out what it is, why you want to do it, how actively you want to be involved in doing it, and then really surrounding yourself with the people that are doing what you want to do, because that's the easiest way to learn. Get a mentor, and get a coach. Start spending time with the people that are doing, because you'll see the challenges too, right? And if you're okay to take on those challenges, amazing, go for it. Some people want to be active, and then they realize, maybe not. Maybe this is a lot of work. They don't have the skills yet, right? So I partnered very early on. I think that's a massive benefit, to be partnered with someone that has complementary skills, complementary experience to you. and really figuring out what kind of strategy you want to get into, and narrowing down a little bit on that, because I also see people. I have one short-term rental, but then I have one multifamily, and then I'm dabbling into development. So if you want to scale, we hired a business coach very early on in our partnership, and that business coach had nothing to do with real estate. I said, I have no experience building a business. I come from the corporate world. Who can teach me how to grow a business? Never mind the real estate investing side. We have that covered. We have the networks, we have the coaches, we have we have some experience. How do you scale this as a business? So that was how I got into it. I knew I hadn't all the time in the world, by the way. So it's really different. How much free time do you have? How much more time? People are working corporate jobs, are working 10 hours a day, and then they want to do an 8-unit conversion. I'm like, do you know what this is going to take? You're going to have zero free time to spend with your family. So really prioritizing what it is that you want to be doing with your time. But get right in there and start having those conversations.
I love that. I love that you talk about finding the why first and then working towards it. I do think, though, what some people might be thinking out there is that's great, you found the perfect partner, but how that doesn't just like fall in your lap. You know what I mean? You've got to get out there and you got to be where, like, who are you talking to? How did you do that? Where are you going to find these people that are like-minded? Because they're not, if they were already in your circles, you probably already would have been doing it. So there is a step to that as well. What would you say to that?
Yeah, I think researching, right? If you're really motivated, I find when I have an inspired thought, when I have an inspired idea, there's nothing. I'll research it at 3:00 in the morning. If you're really inspired, you'll go out and find those people, and really take a look at who your circle is now. Are they are they investing in real estate? Like, for example, my mom, bless her, I love her so much. She has still no idea. She's like, how are you borrowing all this money from all these people? Oh my God, how are you ever going to pay them back? She's not the person I'm going to ask for advice on real estate investing. She still tells her friends I'm a realtor. I'm like, no, not really, but okay. So taking inventory of who's around you and who can inspire you. And, one thing that you mentioned too is, yes, partners don't fall from the sky 100%, but even people call me now and they're like, are there any opportunities for me to partner with you? I have no time, no experience, and no money. So maybe not, I don't know, I try to guide them, but people don't realize, the skills that they do have, right? Because they think that they're coming into the real estate investing world and they don't know anything. I'm like, that's not true. You weren't born yesterday. You have experience, you have life experience, you have experience in your corporate job, or maybe you run a different business. I was talking to a mortgage agent. I said, listen, they wanted to partner. I said, there's something that you need to bring to the table of value, right? And maybe this was just an off-the-cuff idea. I said, you have a big list of people. You see their finances, you see their refinances, and you love relationships. So I'm probing for what it is that their skills are. I love problem solving for people. I love helping people with finance. I love helping, create solutions for them. I said, why don't you start having that conversation with your clients? Maybe that you're involved in potentially raising money. You already have the network. I said, if you called me and said, hey, I have an email list of 5,000 clients, and I want to help you raise money for your next project, that's a massive value, right? Different things, project management. Maybe you want to get involved with somebody. So reaching out to people, knowing what the pain points are and where you can be of service to the deal. And you don't have to do the whole thing on your own at first, try to get in there, make those relationships, ask questions, try to get involved in a deal, even in a small way. And don't get greedy in the beginning, because no one's going to give you half their deal if you don't have any experience, right? But maybe I have a need, or maybe somebody that in your network has a need, and you're really good at project management, and they're willing to, and the relationship always comes first. The relationship always comes first, especially for me. If I have a relationship with someone, like I had this golf event yesterday, and if we can have a good time and golf and have some drinks, and then that's going to help you. So you have to get out there. You have to be yourself. You have to show people what kind of person you are, that you're driven, that you're dedicated, that you show up, you're consistent, you're determined. And then as that relationship grows, there's no rush. I'm not calling people saying, hey, do you want a partner? Hey, do you want a partner? I've never met you in my life, but do you want a partner? No, but if you start showing up on a consistent basis and you start, growing your skills and you're educating yourself and finding what your value is, it's going to be a lot easier now that you have this network of 25 people, or maybe you join a group, to say, hey, this is what I've been working on. This is exactly the value that I'm looking to bring to a partnership. Does anybody want to talk about that, right? So there's different creative ways in which you can find partners. But it's a journey. It takes time, right? I had at least 1,000 hours of Zoom calls before I got there. So be patient.
I love that on a deal. You don't need to make, all the money and take all the percentages, especially starting out, because so many times people focus on the rate of return on the deal instead of the lifetime rate of return on the experience you gained. And I'll promise you that return is going to be a lot bigger than the first one. Now you're an active investor, obviously. Now you're kind of like us. You don't like, or kind of like me. You don't like tenants, termites, and toilets, but you're still an active investor. What would you say to those passive investors? Or just kind of walk us through an active versus passive, and what would a passive investor working with you look like? What's an average person, and how does someone who doesn't want to quit their job and do this full time still get involved in all this excitement of real estate and the great rate of returns, but not have to deal with the day-to-day stuff?
Yeah, so active versus passive. Obviously, active is doing a lot of the work, the toilets and the tenants and such. Although when you build a team, you can, separate yourself from that a little bit. But it takes a lot of time and it takes a lot of effort, and it can be stressful when you don't have experience. So on the passive side, it's really somebody that's, they have some money laying around. They don't exactly know what to do with it. They don't have the time to leave their job and sacrifice family time. Most of my investors are accredited investors, and they're just looking to make a good return on their money. And what I say to passive investors is really know who you're investing with. Do your due diligence on the person first, right? Because a lot of it is about integrity. A lot of it is about who they're working with, who's on the team. Are they doing it by themselves? Are they, and in the beginning, yeah, maybe they are. And maybe it's your friend, and maybe it's your brother, and maybe you're going to support that person. But really holistically look at the person that's on the GP side, the general partner active side, what they're doing, what their experience is, what kind of person they are. Get to know them. The relationship, again, relationship. It's a relationship business, and do your due diligence on that person. And really, for the passive investor, I'm going to park my money. I'm putting my trust in you. I see that I've done my due diligence. I know you know what you're doing. I know you have the right people on the team. You have the experience. I'm trusting you with this money, and we're going to make a great return. And you can go on with your life, with your kids or with your family, or traveling or working or whatever you're doing, knowing that your money is making money without you really doing anything. So I think we all, maybe not we all, but generalizing, real estate investors, we get in on the active side to eventually be passive, right? And that's the goal. It's a lifestyle freedom goal, right? To be passive and to be able to enjoy your life while making great returns. So, sometimes the minimum investment's $50,000, sometimes it's $100,000, but really all you're doing is compounding, like you guys say, compounding those returns, right? So you get into one deal, you make a great return, maybe you make 20% on a development deal annually, and then you just keep recycling, and you're not really doing anything actively, and your liability is so limited. So I use a limited partnership agreement, which limits the liability for the passive investor. So you come in for $50,000, you can't stand to lose anything more than $50,000. So say the whole thing goes sideways, and there's really no way to lose all your money because you're investing in real estate, so there's still value. But let's say you don't make the returns you want to make, or there's no chance for you to lose any more than $50,000. As opposed to you're doing the project on your own. Now you're guaranteeing the loan. You're coming up with the money. You're raising money. Now you're responsible for the investors. Something goes sideways. All of a sudden, your personal guarantee kicks in and you're losing your house and you're like, oh my God, what did I do? Right? So it's also a really good idea to get involved in a deal on the passive side first, even if you want to learn. I say this to people all the time. Like, you have an extra $50,000 kicking around or $100,000, you want to make some money and sit on the sidelines and watch and learn. And, some people are not so open to it. I know some people on the active side, they're like, yeah, I don't want to babysit. I don't want to tell you all about the deal. But you'll still have an opportunity to learn. You get quarterly reports. You can ask questions. I'm really open with my investors. I have Zoom calls and I tell them about the process for those that want to learn. Some of my investors are doctors. They're like, I don't care. I'm never going to learn this. I never want to know. Just give me the report and give me my money and see you later. But there are opportunities for you as a passive investor to see the process first. So very little risk, because you're not actually the one making the decisions, having to build a team, having to find the project, having to find other investors. So there's a low buy-in, and then you get to sit alongside and build a relationship with that person that's experienced, that you've vetted, that you've done your due diligence on, and then you have that relationship. And I host events like we talked about. I host appreciation events for my investors. Now you're opening up to the other people that have invested in the deal. Then it becomes a community, and you can learn that way too. So if you have a little bit of money, you want to get into real estate investing, that's a great way to get in.
That's a great idea. And thinking of it just to start I know that the goal is to get over to the active side if that's what you want to do, but starting passive and learning from it, you got an investment and you're learning, that's like a double investment, right? It's a great idea for starting out.
Get paid to learn is, yeah.
Yeah, I like it.
Yeah, and I think that's really, I was at a conference and these people were talking about how to raise funds, right? How to raise like millions and perhaps tens of millions or hundreds of millions of dollars. And all the experts were saying, well, invest in some funds, because what do you get? You get how they set up the fund. You get how they update the clients every month. You get all the due diligence they do. And if you want, again, some people don't want to learn, but if you want, doesn't matter what you're going to go into, buy something in that industry, invest in something in that industry, and then you learn how that operator works, and you learn all that stuff that you can build on, and you make money along the way.
So I used to run a little program called Lend and Learn. And that's exactly what we did. I had lenders to come in, not on the equity side, on the private side. We needed money to float the construction and this and that. And as an added incentive, because I like to do things, creatively and differently than everybody else, I said every month I'm going to host a Zoom call. So it was really geared to those people that don't have the opportunity, because sometimes, and the buy-in was really low, $20,000. So most people on the equity side, they're not taking $20,000. It's more headache than it's worth. They have minimums, et cetera. And I said, you know what, why don't I give this opportunity? I was only raising, I don't know, $500,000 or $1 million at the time, just to float some projects. I'm like, why don't I give this opportunity to people that don't have the minimum buy-in, but they want to learn, they want to be involved, right? So I paid a decent return, 10%, right? Some people were paying more at that time, but the added value was every month I would get on a Zoom call and explain to them, and I had 6 projects on the go, and they were able to ask me any questions about any of the projects that I was working on, and also about the projects that they invested in. Okay, your $20,000 went to what? This is what we needed the money for, and this is how this project works. And it's funny because sometimes I'd be scrambling to prepare for the meeting, and all it was, I would just look at my calendar and I'm like, okay, I had this architect meeting, I had this meeting with the planner, I had this, and that was the content. It was like live content. This is what's going on with the projects. And they loved it because they got an inside behind the curtains view, and there was projects in the middle that died, and we're doing due diligence. That didn't work out. Why didn't it work out? Or we lost money on this because, for example, we would raise money through the due diligence period for deposits. The deal didn't go through, but we always paid our investors a return, always. And that came out of our pockets. I'm like, this can happen, right? Because the integrity is more important than paying an interest. I would rather my investors be happy. Yeah, the deal didn't work out. I'm taking on that responsibility of paying them. So like, these are the things, and you learn from people's mistakes more so. Those are more valuable than hearing the success stories on stage, because one, mistake can cost you $100,000. And if I'm going to tell you that mistake, that there's your value right there, right? So learning from behind the scenes as a passive investor, highly recommend.
Ilona, this has been great. Learned so much for people that especially want to just get started or kind of want to take it to the next level. I know you talked about doing some of the events and some of the things you do for people wanting to learn. Can you tell us a little bit about that and what what you've got out there? I know I've seen that Level Up and on Facebook. Tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah, so I host a monthly meetup called Level Up Real Estate Investing. You can find it on Facebook. Every month, first Wednesday of every month, we have a meeting, virtual meeting. I bring on an expert speaker and we talk about all different things. And these are mostly people that are in my network, my lawyers, my planners, my architects. And so you're really hearing it from the experts. We meet once a month. We have an expert speaker. People present their deal. They practice their pitch. There's some networking. And we do in-person events sometimes too. We had one last night at the golfing range. It was incredible. Such an incredible group of people. I've been hosting it for 3 years, and even just seeing the progress of everybody in the group, it becomes a family and it's growing. And I love seeing people succeed, and I love seeing, some people started off with a duplex conversion. Now they're like, oh, my deal for the month is a 50 unit acquisition. I'm like, amazing. So that resource is available. It's completely free to join the group and the meetings. I also host a mastermind in Miami with my partner, Adriana. And that's really a small group of 16 individuals, professionals, real estate investors. And we go for 5 days and really just mastermind and really encourage each other, support each other. People are doing business there. And they have an opportunity to sit in the hot seat, tell us about the challenges that they're having in their business or with their goals, and have 15 other people really pour into their business with their experience. So those are the kind of events that I do, and I love connecting people and creating an environment and a community where people can learn and grow and connect.
Just absolutely incredible. We could talk all day. I think we've covered some of the things we want to cover. We might have to have you back to learn what your next step is, because I got a feeling if we talk to you in 12 months, the projects will be bigger, the investments will be bigger, and the success will be bigger. So, Ilona, thank you very much for coming on the podcast. Thanks for watching. Thanks for listening. Thanks for listening to this podcast. If you're listening on YouTube, please like, subscribe, and hit that bell button. If you're listening on your favorite podcast platform, please leave us a 5-star review and subscribe. And if you want more information, check out our website, controllandcompound.com, and you can sign up for an education session with one of our wealth coaches.